get this crap out of your head that, oh, we're going to inflict a defeat on Russia like they've never been defeated before. That's wrong. Okay. That's not what's going to happen. I only spent 30 years in the Navy. What the hell do I know? But Mr. Trump, sir, if you're listening, book the loss. Okay. It's not your loss. It's Biden's loss. We won't make America great and healthy by getting in a nuclear war.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Paradigm Press's YouTube channel. My name is Sean Rigg. I'm the editor of Rude Awakening, and today I am joined by my good friend and contributing editor of The Rude himself, Byron King. How are you today, Byron?
Very well, Sean. Thank you. It's good to be here. Glad for everybody who's out there watching. Thank you.
It's always great to be with you and to hear your great stories and what is fantastic, or well, maybe not fantastic for the world, but fantastic for this particular video is that the byplay now between NATO, America, the UK versus Russia, and or at least sympathizers has taken, has gone to another level now. And it really escalated a bit last week. So I want to talk about that. And because you are, not are you only a Harvard educated geologist, you're a naval aviator, you're a lawyer, you've got this whole toolkit for us. So I really want to dig in deep there. So if you could you just give us an overview of what happened last week that created this incredible escalation?
Yes, and you used the word fantastic, and that to me, what rang in my head was like the fantasy nature of it. I mean, can you believe what is happening? And I mean, for anybody who has been busy with life, and I understand you've got things happen and everything, but I mean, this is as we speak today. It's the couple days before U.S. Thanksgiving. It's November 26th, and last week, last weekend, the 16th, 17th, 15th, 16th, 17th of November, Joe Biden got on the big blue jet and flew down to South America. And he went to, I guess he was in Peru at this G20 meeting. And, it was funny because like he's wandering around, all the heads of state are getting their photos taken, and Biden's off somewhere doing whatever. He didn't get his photo taken in the big group photos, kind of like, man, what, like, hello, you're the president of the United States, and you missed your big shot there. Okay. Then he flies off to I was going to say the jungles of Brazil. That's an old to the rainforest of Brazil. And in front of this very staged, rainforest setting, he's talking about, oh, we're here to save the rainforest and all that. So, okay, there you go. Thank you, President Biden. We all want to save the rainforest. We really appreciate that. That's wonderful. Okay, he's down in the rainforest, saving the rainforest. Up in Washington, D.C., last weekend, somehow out of the bowels and out of the small intestine of the deep state comes this new dog that, oh, we're going to let the Ukrainians fire these things called ATACMS, ATACMS, Army Tactical Missile System, ATACMS, Army. They're missiles. They're big things. They're like 3 feet wide and 20 some feet long and everything. We're going to let them fire these things. They have a range of about 200 miles, give or take. We're going to let them fire them into the territory of Russia. Up to now, those ATACMS have been. You can shoot them ATACMS, but you can shoot them at the Russians who are inside of the former boundaries of Ukraine. But don't you be shooting them at the Russian Federation. Don't touch that Russian soil with these American missiles. Okay. Well, last weekend, somebody somewhere somehow, the deep state, Anthony Blinken, Sullivan, whatever, Jake Sullivan, said, okay, yeah, it's all right. You guys can shoot them into Russia. So Biden's in the jungles of Brazil, and at this point, a week and a half later, the Defense Department has denied that they had any input to it. I didn't quite know. They're not quite sure about that, but they're washing their hands, saying, "Oh no, the DoD, we did not do that. This was the State Department and the National Security Council." Well, anyhow, so that so you say, well, what's the big deal? Who cares if American missiles fly and hit Russia? Well, first of all, the Russians care. They have made no secret of it at all. We do not want your American weapons hitting Russia because that's like an act of war. And the second thing is that you can't even plausibly deny that it's not you doing it, because these ATACMS are very sophisticated weapons, and for the range that they have, you need satellite it's looking, you need satellites that look down, you need targeting, you need, all sorts of signal processing, lots of intel, all this software. You don't learn how to shoot ATACMS at the local junior college down the road there, You don't, you only learn that going to very, very special schools in the United States Army. And the only people who know how to do this are, like US people and maybe some, NATO, like, Germany, Britain, maybe those guys, but if a U.S. Army, U.S. America, United States of America missile hits Russia, it's you Americans who did it. And the Russians have said, as a matter of law, if you fire one of your missiles and it hits our soil, we consider that an act of war. Now you can say, well, no, don't do that. Don't think like that's how they think. Okay, don't project your fantasies, speaking of it, onto them. That's what they think. That's what they're saying. You shoot at us, it's an act of war, and we're going to respond in kind. So, last, I guess, Sunday, the word came out. Okay, you Ukrainians, it's okay for you to fire those ATACMS into Russia. So on Tuesday, how fast? My goodness, things happen fast. It's almost as if it was wired, but you never know. The Ukrainians fired. I have heard 12 ATACMS, ATACMS, into Russia. Now the Russians, they're expecting this to happen, and so they've got their radars and they're looking around. They see these things coming at them. They have exceptionally good air defense systems. They pew pew pew. They shoot down 11 of them. The 12th one kind of gets close to the target, and but it hits, but it doesn't do any damage because they killed it in the terminal phase. We could talk all day about Russian air defense. I could talk all day about Russian air defense. I don't know that the viewers out there want to hear it, but it's really good. Okay, anybody who says Russia's a gas station with nuclear missiles is completely stupid, and you should just completely discount everything that comes out of their mouth afterwards. That is absolutely a sense of disdain towards Russia, the Russian people, the Russian education system, the whole Russian culture. That just really betrays a person's ignorance. I mean, you must be a complete freaking moron to say that and believe that and have that sort of feeling in your gut. I mean, the Russians invented chemistry. They invented the periodic table. They invented half of math. The joke in American universities is that really smart Chinese kids come to the U.S. so they can study math and physics under Russian professors. It's not like, So anyhow, Russia is more than a gas station with nuclear weapons. They have really good air defenses as well. Okay, they do radar like nobody's business. They do electronic warfare like nobody's business. They do math, they do physics, they do this stuff and they do it really well. Okay, you better, you don't have to like them, but you better freaking respect them. I said freaking. I said freaking, not the other word, but I mean, you better freaking respect them. Okay, don't be stupid. Really, if you're out there, don't be stupid. Okay, get smart about this. They're good. All right, they're very, very good, and respect your opponent. How good are they? I'm glad you asked, because the Ukrainians fired these U.S. missiles at Russia on Tuesday. And on Thursday, late in the evening, 2 days later, the Russians fired one missile back. Now, not just any old missile. It was an intermediate range ballistic missile, an IRBM, not an intercontinental missile, not like one of these big things that you fire from Russia and it can hit, like Washington or Texas or, Los Angeles or something. No, there's an intermediate range missile. Depends. There's a definition for what these things are. One missile. Okay, they fire the missile from a range in Russia. It's a test range. Okay, and this is what I've found out in the last couple of days. We, USA, knew about it. Something was going on because it was a test range where we have satellites that are going over this test range all the time. They're like, oh, hey, what's going on down there? So when they roll something out, it's like, hey, what do they got? What's going on? They roll things. We watch them like a hawk. Okay, the satellites, the electronic signals, intelligence, all that stuff. All that stuff. I'm really being generous here by even saying that much. We watch them like crazy. They roll it out, and then a couple of things happen and don't happen. They're prepping this missile for launch. We see that, but they're not prepping it with anything nuclear, because when people are doing nuclear stuff, because there's certain things that happen. There's certain security protocols. There's certain systems that get fired up. There's certain signals that you can figure out. But they bring this missile out and they put it on it's on a mobile system. It's on a truck, so they drive it out in a truck, they raise it up, and say, okay, 30 minutes before the launch, the Russians literally get on the phone and they call Washington, D.C. and they say, per the, for various treaties that we have here, I'm paraphrasing it, but we're going to launch a missile in 30 minutes. And now this is to avoid confusion, because when the satellite detects, the big hot plume of the rocket firing and everything, people go to general quarters there. It's kind of like, oh no, they're shooting a missile. Well, if it's a test launch, you tell people we're going to be testing the launch. Like when we fire a rocket from Cape Canaveral or Vandenberg or something, we tell the Russians, just so that when they see the hot plume of gas, that they don't think we're trying to, start World War III. Okay, so they fire this missile, up it goes, whoosh, flies west, and all this energy is coming out the back of the missile. It's going to go fast, 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 fast. I'm going really, really fast. I'm a rocket. I'm a rocket man. Rocket man going fast, 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 fast. Okay, the rocket does its thing. It gets up into orbit, and boop. Okay, the rocket goes away. Okay, now this is your what they call the bus. This thing here. This is the bus. Okay, flying through the sky, turns around, and now the bus has 6, call it warheads on it. Multiple independent targetable reentry vehicles, MIRVs, and it's flying through the sky. Now, this is where it really gets interesting. This is where Russian math and physics and chemistry, shows its stuff. Okay. So all these 6 things, these 6 little guys, they separate from the bus. Okay. And now it's on a US multiple independent reentry vehicle bus, they fall ballistically. They just go like that. Gravity hauls them down. Now, apparently, each one of these things was its own rocket, its own guided rocket, and it starts shooting them down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Boom, 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 boom. Shoots them down. So 6 items. Let's call them items. Come down out of the sky. Now, each one of these items, each one breaks into 6 pieces. We call them submunitions, like, each one of these things breaks into submunitions, and they hit a target in Ukraine. And we'll talk about that target in a minute here, but hold that thought. But they hit the target, boom, boom, boom. So you probably saw, you may have seen the video of these things coming through the sky, these really bright lights going pew, 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 like pew, pew, pew through the clouds. The cloud cover was about 2,000 feet above the ground, 1,700 meters cloud cover above the ground. And you saw these things coming through. And it was totally cool optically. Look it up on YouTube or whatever. Find, the image of these things coming through the sky, because it was recorded by many, many, many cameras. And there are many videos out there. But instead of just one item coming through the cloud, each of these 6 things broke into 6 others. So we had 36 munitions coming down really fast, and they're going boom, 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 boom. Then there's a few seconds, boom, 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 or a second, boom, 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 boom. And they had 36 hits. Now, when they hit, obviously they didn't explode. There was no nuclear explosion. We'd know about that. No big flash, no Hiroshima, no Zara bomba or anything like that. But when they hit, they didn't even explode like a bomb hits, kaboom. No, they didn't do that. They hit and they penetrated the ground, and then it was sort of like, oh, now what? Well, it happened at night, so you couldn't really see the what was coming up. But apparently, each one of these things hit the ground in a way and in a sequence, in a very, very rapid sequence, putting all this energy into the ground, basically causing a giant earthquake, you might say. And the target was completely destroyed. Now, the Ukrainians have put a big lid on everything. Nobody in, nobody out, except for certain intel people, and we haven't seen any satellite photos. I think what the Russians are doing is they might be waiting for the weather to get better, but they might also be saying, okay, we have photos of this, but we're going to wait until the Ukrainians in the West Photoshop something of, like, it'll be like some doghouse or some outhouse or some little log cabin someplace. Oh, they blew up the log cabin. No. That gets into what it was that they blew up. So the question is, what were these things? Well, there's an old sort of, science fiction-y thing about, U.S. weapons. It's called the rods from God, that you can take a big rod, basically like a curtain rod, bigger than a curtain rod.
Tungsten rod, right?
Yeah, a tungsten, which is really dense, and you fire it down. And the kinetic energy is such that when you put it into the ground, it'll create a lot of problems. And now there's something to that, and nobody really knows except for the Russians, and they're not telling us. But it would not surprise me if the Russians made, metal slugs, you might say, out of tungsten. This here is 1 pound of tungsten. It's very dense. It's dense. Let's see, 19.3 grams per cubic centimeter. By comparison, this is a pound of titanium. Like here, this is super strong titanium. This is a pound of tungsten. You say, why are they different sizes? Because they're about the same, width and everything. Why is one so much bigger than the other? Well, because tungsten is about 3.5 to 4 times the density of titanium. So this is 3.5 to 4 times. It's 3.5 to 4 times the size of this guy. But if you take, and I'm not saying it was tungsten, I don't know, but it was probably something like tungsten, some alloy of tungsten. Add something else into it, whatever, a metal slug. Now we get back to that part about the rocket, which was flying up there. All that energy in the rocket was going into motion, creating kinetic energy. I mean, the rocket fuel is potential energy. The motion is kinetic energy. I release my bus, with my little guys in it, and then they shoot their 6 warheads down there, and then the warheads break into 6 submunitions, and each one of them has a rocket. So you're putting a lot of energy into this slug of metal here, and it hits the ground. And it doesn't just hit the ground; it hits the ground like 6 at a time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you're creating a resonance pattern. You're creating like a geophysical multiplier to the earthquake energy, and that's why you shake these things up. That's why you fracture the rock, you pulverize the concrete, you shake down the walls and stuff like that. There were a couple of accounts that came out of Ukraine that people went to. There's nothing there anymore. It's all dust. It's all rubble. It's all destroyed. Everything. And so now this is not a nuclear weapon, and it's barely a conventional weapon. I mean, in the sense that there's no high explosive to it. By comparison, I wrote an article about this, which will be coming out very soon in the Rickards Strategic Intelligence, where I actually did some physics. You take a 2,000-pound bomb, a U.S. Mark 84 2,000-pound bomb. The Air Force has them, the Navy, the Marine Corps. It's about 18 inches at its widest. It's about 12 foot long. It weighs about 2,000 pounds, a little more, depending on what kind of fins and what kind of guidance thing you put up front and everything. Trust me on this. When this thing blows up, if you do the physics and you do the thermodynamics, it's about 200 megajoules of energy. We're talking physics here, but just 200. Keep that number. 200 megajoules of energy. Okay. If I take a 100 kilogram slug of tungsten and I accelerate it to Mach 11, let's say, and I shoot it down out of the sky, and it hits the ground, it's over 600 megajoules of energy. So that slug of energy from that rod from God, so to speak, that slug of energy is 3 times the energy release of a 2,000-pound bomb. So in the sense that 36 of these guys hit the ground, that would be like 108 2,000-pound bombs hitting the target. 108 2,000-pound bombs. That would be like 3 B-52s, an what they call an arc light strike. 3 B-52s, 1, 2, 3, dropping an entire stick of bombs, all hitting the target at the same time, putting that much energy into the target. So that, and this is just really rough math. Don't I mean, you go check the physics if you want. And I don't know the exact numbers or anything else, but anyhow, the target was destroyed. And if you're still with me, if you haven't gone up, let's talk about that target. Let's talk about that target. Why? What were they hitting? Well, what they bomb? What is so important that you would want to take a missile like that? Okay, now, first of all, go back to the beginning. You shoot the ATACMS at Russia. You hit Russian soil. We're mad. We're going to respond with one missile, one weapon system, one attack, and it's not nuclear. And they gave us 30 minutes warning, and we just get all the people out of there. Everybody who can, save yourselves. And and then the bombs come in. So what did they blow up? It's an industrial facility that dates from the 1940s and 50s in terms of when it was like really constructed. In Dnipro, I forgot, Dnipropetrovsk. It's called the Dnipro Mash, the Dnipro Machine Building Complex or whatever. It's a consolidation of a bunch of Russian words. Okay, I mean, I can read it better than I can speak it. I guess better to need to practice more. Um, the This facility they started construction on it. It's an old industrial facility from way back, but when the Red Army kicked the Germans out back in 1944 in this area, they started to rebuild this industrial facility, and they built it as a massive Soviet level industrial complex. They could do anything. I mean, they built tanks, they built artillery, they built engines, all sorts of stuff. By the 1950s, in the early 50s, they converted it into a missile production facility. And the Dnipro Mash, the Dnipro Machine Company, was the main source of building missiles and intercontinental missiles for the Soviet Union back in the Soviet days. They turned out about 100 big, long ICBM missiles per year. This thing is huge. This thing is gigantic. It's about, I'll call it maybe a mile and a half this way and about a mile that way. I mean, it's huge. It's 1.5 square miles of nothing but industrial complex. It's got its own rail yards. It had its own bus routes to take people around. It employed tens of thousands of people in its heyday. It had machine shops. They could do metallurgy. They could bend metal. They could build things. They built rocket engines. They built electronics. They built electronic warfare systems. They built warheads. They built satellites at this facility in the days of the Soviet Union. So the Soviet Union fell apart in 1991, and the Ukrainians took it over. And the country was broke, and everybody's broke, and people weren't getting paid for 6 months at a time, that kind of thing. And along the way, the U.S. and the West, they got in there and they did a lot of intel on it. But in the 1990s, the good old days of the 90s, the USA, NASA, they funded some money in there. Okay, build us some rockets. I mean, some of the International Space Station, it was built there. Some of the components to it. The But then along the way, the Ukrainians kept using it. They were building rockets for a while for Roscosmos. The Ukrainians were building rockets for the Russian version of NASA. And then that fell apart when Russian-Ukrainian relations started to fall apart after, in like well, certainly after 2014, let's say. I don't want to get too deep into the weeds here. But this is a very, very important complex. I mean, very serious engineering, very serious machine building capabilities. And now, maybe a month or so ago, Zelensky, President Zelensky of Ukraine, although he's not the president anymore, his term expired last May, and he's still sort of holding power because it's like, hey, I'm in charge, and we're not going to have elections, so I'm going to stay in charge. Dictators, think like that. And so he said those Russians better watch out because we're going to build missiles and shoot missiles at Russia. Okay, yeah, good luck with that, pal. I mean, if nothing else, you just signed the death warrant for your missile building facility. So anyhow, from what we know, the Russians, they fired their missile. Off came the warhead bus. Down came the rods from God. The tungsten penetrators, whatever they were. Whatever, we don't know exactly what they were, but I'm just sort of kind of going on what we can speculate intelligently about. And this facility is destroyed. I mean, this facility, which was built by Stalin in the 40s and 50s and then upgraded through the Soviet days, this thing was built to fight a nuclear war. There were bunkers, there are tunnels that are a couple of 100 feet below the ground. I mean, we've had intelligence people go there, and and so we know a lot about the facility, and the Russians completely destroyed it and wrecked it with no nuclear flash or anything. I guess the last point I want to make is that, was the U.S. and as the West, were we surprised by this Russian missile? Yeah, you better freaking believe we were. I mean, this is the kind of thing we kind of knew maybe, yeah, they sort of have, they're working on something, but the crazy Russians, yeah, they're always working on something, aren't they? You know, but but I don't think I think there's a lot of people in the Pentagon, the intelligence services, whatever, that who, first of all, they may not be smart enough to even process what just happened. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
maybe I don't want to be, you know, I don't want to be jerky about it. Maybe they are smart enough to process it, you know, but they had better think really hard and process harder, you know, because we just got shown, we, the West, us, USA, we just got shown a weapons capability that I don't think anybody has felt that level of shock since, let's say, oh, July 16th, 1945, you know, at Trinity, New Mexico, when, you know, when Oppenheimer's device, when his gadget actually exploded and worked. It's kind of like, holy smokes, I mean, this damn thing works. Yeah. Um, this is a total game changer. You know, do the Russians have a whole lot of them? I don't know. The Russians know, and they're not talking. If they've used one of them, it means they probably have more. And if they have more, it means they probably have components to build even more. And now that it works, they're going to build a whole lot of them, you know? And so he said, well,
Yeah.
we're going to build some of them too. Yeah, good luck, you know? I mean, and I mean that, good luck. I mean, we're going to, you know, as far as I know, and I have no security clearance anymore. It's been a long time since I've, you know, delved into this stuff, but I have never heard of any active U.S. program to come up with a similar system like this. I mean, if we have one, maybe it's out in some tunnel in Nevada someplace. I don't know, but I've never heard of any U.S. system comparable to this, and nobody who I know has ever heard of any system like this. And I know a lot of people,
Right.
uh,
Yeah.
and so this is a total game changer. So I guess it gets back to your original point. You know, Biden's on the way out, another whatever 50 days or something, and he's gone. He's history. He's toast. You know, and he's down in the jungles of Brazil talking about saving the rainforest, and then his people in Washington, you know, these crazy nutty, you know, people who never served a day in the military. They probably never took a physics course. You know, I'd like to see their grade in physics. Okay, you know, and tell me what your grade was in physics one, and I'll talk with you. You know, and and they're saying let's shoot missiles at Russia, and the Russians are like, if you do that, that's an act of war. And then they fire back and they say, if you really want to get into this, this is what we got, you know. So, and
Well,
this is where we stand. Here we are.
yeah. If
It's
we can get into the politics of it just for a second, that is a great summary of all the military stuff. Thank you so much for that. But like one thing that I mean, listen, Democrats tend to be shameless nowadays, but they were, as far as I can see, and I'm only sitting in my house in Italy, but from here it looked like they got resoundingly rebuked in the election. They got blown out. They lost the popular vote. They lost the electoral college by a landslide. It's not like it wasn't close. I mean, Trump has a clear mandate to change things. Joe Biden, let's not blame this on Joe Biden or even Kamala herself. She doesn't know what's going on either. Joe
mm-mm.
Biden's wandering around in the jungles, like you said. Why is the Biden administration or deep state or whoever, whatever glob is running the United States right now? Why were they so happy to escalate? And again, I think your point was well made about the DoD going, not us. Like this looks like now even almost the military industrial complex is kind of going, hey guys, not us. We saw that thing. Arishnik stands, it actually means hazel tree, the thing that produces hazelnuts. It's the only thing that's not tough about the thing, if you ask me. But you know, they're basically, you know, they've escalated. DoD's pulling away, going, not us, which to me says, I don't think we have the capability to strike back. I think you're right about that. Why are they escalating? What is their thinking right now? Like, hey, let's poke the bear. It's a good idea. Why do they think that's a good idea?
Well, part of it just has to do with the idea that, you know, that they lost and they're about to lose power, and not just lose the presidency, but, you know, lose the House. They've lost the House, lost the Senate. I mean, the House is like this close, and then Trump keeps pulling people out of the House to staff his administration with. It's kind of like you're gonna draft enough
Mm,
people that you're going to lose the majority in the House. Oh, we'll have
yeah,
special elections. Guess what? The Democrats tend to win these special elections. They pour money into it, and they know how to they know how to win elections. You know, when they want to, if you know what I mean. And so be careful about that. Um, but so first of all, there's this visceral hatred towards Trump that, back when he was, just a New York real estate guy and a celebrity and TV guy on The Apprentice. He was great. He was toast of the town. He donated money to Democrats. He donated money to Kamala when she was running for Attorney General of California. They
Yes.
loved it. They always cashed his checks. They cashed his
Yeah.
check. And Chuck Schumer used to go. Trump tells his story. Chuck Schumer used to come to his office and just sit there in front of him and, beg for campaign donations and beg for an endorsement, back when Schumer was a congressman and then, as a senator. But as soon as Trump starts to run as a Republican, I'm like, oh, bad man, orange man. And so anyhow, first of all, they hate his guts. Secondly, like, well, why do they hate his guts? Well, because he's a threat to their power, and also he's a threat to their power because, and they can't control him. Everybody else, all these rhinos and all the, the Bush clan and the Cheney clan and the Mitt Romney clan, they have them wrapped up. They got the goods on. They have something on them.
Yeah.
There's some reason why they all sort of roll over like like little puppies and pee themselves when the order comes.
Yeah.
And I don't want to get into what they do to to get these people under their control. But they must have photographs of something somewhere. Whatever. And you go to some party and you have one drink and you pass out and you wake up with a photo pinned to your shirt, like, oh my God, we have you, we own you, and so, and, otherwise, I don't think people who are smart enough to do politics are dumb enough to do some of the things that they do once they get in there, unless somebody really is driving their agenda. So yes. So anyhow, but you're a month and a half away, or 2 months, less than 2 months from changing administrations, and you're pulling a stunt like this. It's kind of like, what are you thinking? And you know, there is so much invested in the Ukraine war so far that they just want to push it into the next administration. I mean, Trump is a very smart man. I mean, he is brilliant. I've never met him. Okay, I know people who know him. I have a really dear friend, I've known for 40 years, who was a Navy helicopter pilot who almost became Trump's helicopter pilot, but it didn't work out because of just family situations. When Trump was recruiting him to be Trump's helicopter pilot, um, he talked with Trump. Trump knew everything about helicopters. I mean, he's this guy at the time was like a 25-year Navy helicopter pilot, and he knew everything about helicopters. And he was talking to Trump, and Trump was telling him things about helicopters that he didn't know. And I've talked with other people who've talked with Trump about Trump Force One, the Boeing 757. Trump knows all sorts of stuff about the Boeing, he knows as much about this plane as many of the people who designed them. So
Wow.
and you say, well, that's all sort of arcane knowledge. Yeah, Trump is a smart guy. Okay,
Yeah.
and smart people shouldn't do stupid things.
Hmm.
And one stupid thing is to continue this Ukraine war.
Yeah.
Trump has the opportunity to make a very clean break. He can say, Ukraine war needs to come to an end. Ukraine's going to lose territory. It's going to, we're going to cut our losses. We're going to stand up. We're going to walk away from the table. We're going to de-escalate. We're going to deconflict all these issues that are going on with Russia. And you can call it, oh, America's losing if you want, but I call it America's winning because we're not going to get into a nuclear war. I think that's a win. I don't think that's a
Yeah.
loss. But these other people, the Biden administration, Biden and his people, it wasn't just Biden. I mean, he's an elderly man who's not in the best of shape. Well, we know that. Everybody knows that. He may have had his fingers in the pie a little bit, but he wasn't making all the decisions. There's somebody else.
Yeah.
And get that behind us. Get it over with. It's a loss. Okay, the
Yeah.
million Ukrainians who are dead. Yeah, they're going to hate us forever for that. Deal with it. But get this war. But this is the time for Trump to make the break. It's not the time to say, oh, we're going to escalate. We're going to pour more resources into Ukraine. If the Russians don't do what we want, we're going to make what happened before look like peanuts or something. That is a really stupid thing to say. I mean, that is a really dumb thing to say. I mean, first of all, we don't have anything to give them anymore. We gave them everything. The stores of weapons are down to this much, down to very thin. Admiral Papero, Sam Papero, who runs Indo-PACOM, Sam Papero's responsibility in the Pacific. He's Admiral Nimitz, he's General MacArthur, and he's Lord Mountbatten in terms of a World War II analogy. Uh, he has given a couple of interviews in the last 2 weeks. Ward Carroll's interview on YouTube, the Brookings Institution on YouTube. He was up in New Hampshire at some function about a couple of days ago, and he makes no secret of the fact that we United States cannot be giving away Patriot missiles, ATACMS missiles, air-to-air missiles. We cannot be doing this because every one of those missiles that you're giving away is something that comes out of our magazines. We cannot replace them fast enough. And it's Papero's job is not to start a war in the Pacific with China, but it is his job to fight it if it happens. If it happens,
Right.
he's the guy. He's Nimitz, MacArthur, Mountbatten, and he's got to fight a war. He's not going to start it, but he does have to fight it. And if he's the war fighting man, and so what he is saying publicly, look it up on YouTube. What he's saying is we cannot afford to give any more missiles to Ukraine and also Israel. I mean, he's talking about the number that have gone to Israel, and then all those surface to air missiles that we fired off the ships against the Houthi drones in the Red Sea. That's a whole nother warehouse full of missiles that we don't have anymore. I mean, Lockheed can only make like 500 of these things a year. That's all they can do, 10 a week. That's where you're at. And unless it's going to take a couple of years to build another factory, another plant, whatever. So anyway, so why are people doing this? Well, it does seem crazy, doesn't it? But they've got so much invested on a personal level, professional level in what they've done, and they're going to go down in history as just these loser war criminals who got Ukraine and got the West into a war with Russia, which basically we've lost. Yeah.
Well, it never seemed like a good idea to have $2 million missiles going up against $20,000 drones. But as someone who holds a British passport, it seems even more ridiculous to me that London seems absolutely bloodthirsty. Boris Johnson was just on French TV screaming how we had to escalate. Keir Starmer, who is, to me, right now presiding over a disintegration of British society. They want him out. They've got a petition. They just voted him in, and they already want him out. There's a petition out there. I think it's got 2 million signatures already asking him to leave. Is absolutely gung ho on going into and escalating this thing with Russia. And last time I checked, the British don't have much of military. With all due respect to the SAS and the SBS and the great stuff they produce, they simply do not have enough of anything to fight Russia. What is London's beef? Like, it seems like you have this irrational hatred of Russians, straight down to street level, by the way. I don't get it.
It goes back to where? It goes back to the Napoleonic Wars. Are they mad that Napoleon or the Russia beat Napoleon? And the British like to say that they defeated him at Waterloo, but it was the invasion of Russia that killed the French army and destroyed Napoleon. And actually the Russians came all the way west and they occupied Paris. The mayor of Paris went out and handed Kutuzov the key to the city. And so maybe it goes back to that. In the 1830s and 40s, there was this school of thought in Britain that we're an imperial sea power, but the Russians threaten us with their continental power. There was the Crimean War in the 1850s, where the French and the British wanted to support the Turks against the Russians. Never a good idea, but they did that. In a way, frankly, this is getting deep into history here, but in a way, we have the Crimean War to thank for modern Russia, because the Tsar Alexander came out of that and said, here's Britain over there and there's France over there, and they're moving armies over here to Crimea and they're fighting us. What are we doing wrong as Russia? I know, he says, here's what we need to do. We need to do two things in Russia. We need to build railroads all over the place. So they did. So Russia is a very rail-oriented country where you can move a lot of heavy stuff and a lot of people and everything in a hurry over dedicated rail lines. Thank you. That dates back to the Crimean War. And another thing that came out of that was the Russians created this sort of a national draft system where every year young men of a certain age, are become eligible to get pulled into the army. Not that everybody does every year, whatever, but that system, is part of the military strength of Russia, that they are always training young cadre of men, mostly men, women too, in military things. At least how to hold a rifle, how to clean a rifle, how to throw a hand grenade, whatever. How to shoot a cannon. And you saw that all through the 1800s into the 1900s when the Bolsheviks took over Russia. They got rid of a lot of Tsarist era things, but they kept the military conscription angle to it. And the Second World War, defeating Hitler, defeating the Nazis. I mean, that was based on that mass conscription. And then we saw it through the days of the Red Army, all through the Cold War, and then even today the Russians still have it. The Russians have a great education system for what they want to do. They are highly industrialized. I mean, by purchasing power parity, PPP, Russia is the fourth largest economy in the world. China, US, India, Russia. In terms of how much electricity they produce, more than just about anybody but China and the US. How much steel they produce, same thing. How many, mines, metals, whatever. They're a large agricultural country. They're a net exporter of food. They have an entire, from ore in the ground to satellites in space. They have an entire aerospace industry, second to none. We talk about the International Space Station up in orbit. Some of it was built at that factory in Ukraine, but a whole bunch of it was built in Russia. Again, that was sort of like a jobs program in the 90s and early 2000s, where the U.S. paid NASA paid Russia to build stuff, which we then launched into orbit to build the International Space Station. So a lot of the space station is Russian construction, and aerospace construction. So again, it gets back to that. Oh, Russia's a gas station with nuclear weapons or something. Well, there's a lot more than that. But anyhow,
Yeah.
why do the British hate them? It's cultural in Britain, isn't it? I mean,
Seems to be.
yeah, yeah, and um, there's all sorts of historical revisions about how the Rothschilds created the Bolsheviks and all this. I mean, you can go down those rabbit holes if you want, and oftentimes you read things and like, oh, that's interesting, but that's sort of deeper history than I want to get into right now. But getting into like the practicalities of it, should Britain get into a war with Russia? I mean, are you freaking crazy? Are you nuts? Are you out of your mind?
Exactly.
If we took the whole British Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines, and we gathered them all in one place, I don't know, would they fill Wimbledon Stadium? Maybe, maybe just, the British Navy is laying up ships. It's the smallest navy in a couple hundred years. I mean,
Yeah.
the British submarine force, which was traditionally fabulous. I mean, they were last year they were running an ad in the newspapers for an admiral to run their submarine force. It's kind of like, hey, do you got any admirals out there who want to run the submarine? I mean, I can't make this stuff up. The British aerospace industry is a shadow of what it used to be. I mean, okay, Rolls-Royce makes good engines, but they don't make that many of them. They're not, they don't, it's not a hugely big company. Um,
Yeah.
and then meanwhile, I mean, you look at the sociology of Britain. I mean, I see all these videos on Twitter X or whatever it's called, or YouTube, of these thuggish British police. I mean, I always thought the British police were the polite Bobby walking around, but you see these videos today of the cops just manhandling people. You're out, somebody's out there with a protest sign, and the cops go up and smack them with the billy club or something. It's like, what kind of country is this? What have you turned into? And they use these stories about somebody posts something on Facebook, and then police show up at their house. Like, we want to talk with you about that post on Facebook. It's like, I mean, in America, it would be like, get the hell off my front porch or something like that. I got the First Amendment. But Britain has no First Amendment. They have no Constitution. They have no Bill of
Yeah.
Rights. They have no nothing. And what can I say? I feel for you. I don't know. I mean, it's wonderful history, literature, science, culture, etc. But what have the Brits done to themselves with their stupid political class that they have? Unbelievable. Boris Johnson was no prize. Keir Starmer is he's scary. I mean, the
Yeah.
man is scary. He was was he not? Was he not the the district attorney, you might say, or the prosecutor, whatever they call it in Britain?
Yeah.
In was it Rotherham, the
The
place
Rotherham. Yeah,
where
that's right. Yep.
they had the I don't I want to be careful
Grooming
what I say because I
gangs.
don't want to get us deplatformed off of YouTube or whatever.
Yeah.
They had an issue in Rotherham, if you know what I mean,
Yeah.
and
They
he
did.
was the head,
He was the head of the
prosecutor
Crown
there,
Prosecution
and he
Service.
let it
Yeah.
happen. He never did
Hmm.
anything about it.
That's
So
right.
look it up. Look it up. Look it up. It's on the internet someplace. I mean, what a
Yeah.
guy. How did he wind up? How did he wind up in charge? I don't know.
Got me. But let's. I guess I want to leave the last word with you. Where do we go from here? What is the answer to this? How do we de-escalate without completely looking like morons? Although I think that might be inevitable anyway.
Yeah.
Like, where are we going from here, Byron? What do you think?
Well, I'm not Donald Trump's advisor,
Hmm.
and I'm a little bit worried about some of the people who might become Donald Trump's advisors,
Hmm.
uh, because they tend to be very hawkish. There is this attitude in the culture, in the U.S. culture, that oh, we have to support Ukraine to the hilt. No, I mean, no, we don't. No, we don't. I mean, Ukraine is over there and we're over here, and bad things happen in that part of the world. They've happened that way for thousands of years, and I don't mean just to dismiss it, but you know, it is not a vital national interest of the United States of America of where the border is drawn between this so-called Ukraine and Russia. Whether it's here, or, at the east side of the Donbass, or whether it's on the west side of the Donbass, or whether it's at the Dnieper River, or whether Odessa is Russian or Odessa is Ukrainian. That is not a vital national interest of the United States. That's not worth getting us all killed over.
Yeah.
In terms of lost um, lost credibility, lost money, lost everything. Um, I mean, our good friend Rick Rule, the natural resource investment guru, likes to say that people call him up and say, oh, what should I do with this stock that I bought that went really far down? And he says, well, you could either buy more or you can just sell it. Well, but then I'll take a loss. No, you've already got the loss. You're just going to book the loss. What should we do with Ukraine right now? In my humble opinion, Mr. Trump, sir, if you're listening, if anybody out there who talks to Trump, if you're listening, book the loss. Okay, it's not your loss; it's Biden's loss. Do something that is easy to do. Blame Biden. Blame his people. Draw a line. It's over. Okay, it's freaking. And I'm using that word freaking, not the other word. It's freaking over. The war is over. That side lost. That side won. How many more of these missile demonstrations do you want to see? How many more of these tungsten bullets coming out of the sky? How many more of those? What does a system like that mean to the Western military? That means that anything that's hard, any hard target is dead. Okay, it's
Yeah.
dead. Any pier is dead. Any shipyard is dead. Any weapons facility, any weapons factory is dead. Any staging area is dead. Any command and control system is dead. Even deep buried underground bunkers, they're dead. Okay, they are dead. You're dead man walking. You're dead man sitting at the console. You can be under 100 feet of granite. In Colorado or something like that. One of those guys hits and penetrates. They'll never find your body. You will become part of geologic history. Okay, you'll be buried. And so Mr. Trump's advisors, get this crap out of your head that we're going to inflict a defeat on Russia like they've never been defeated before. That's wrong. Okay, that's not what's going to happen. I mean, I'm just telling you, as an outsider looking in, and I only spent 30 years in the Navy. What the hell do I know? But do not take this further. So how does this end? It ends by ending it. Okay, it ends by we're going to cut the loss. We're going to write it off. We're going to have to pick up the pieces. We're going to have to bind up the wounds. Heal the sick, bury the dead, all that kind of stuff, and we're going to have to move forward. Another thing that Trump ought to do, You know, I mean, while he's putting tariffs on Canada and Mexico over the immigrants and tariffs on China over the fentanyl, which is not actually, it's actually not a bad idea. You got their attention. Okay. You're going to
Yeah.
get their attention with that. They are definitely going to wake up and say, what just happened? You know? And another thing that Trump ought to do on day one is begin the process of bringing Russia back into SWIFT and bringing and lifting sanctions. I mean, there's only what, I don't know, 25,000 different sanction actions that the U.S. Treasury has taken in the last couple of years against Russia and Russians. I mean, there's tens of thousands of separate items on the sanction list. Start lifting that stuff. And so, well, why? We're rewarding them. No, you're not. I mean, that whole BRICS thing, the whole BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, they almost came up with their own BRICS currency a month ago at Kazan. They almost came out with a currency to compete against the dollar. But what they said was, we're thinking about this and we're working on it, but it's actually hard to replace the dollar because the credit markets are so deep and there's so many things that you have to do to replace the dollar with a BRICS unit, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, and that's your leverage. Lift them. Just say, listen, we know you're mad at us, and we know that we've had a lot of bad blood in the last couple of years, but you're welcome to come back into the SWIFT system. Everybody's welcome back into the SWIFT system. If you do that, you've just made it that much harder for BRICS to come up with their currency unit. Yep. Mr. Trump on the campaign trail said a couple of times, many times, that if they're attacking the dollar, they're de-dollarizing. And if we lose the strength of the dollar in international markets, that would be catastrophic to the United States. That's like losing a war. Yeah, you lose the dollar, you lose the war. You lose the war, you lose the dollar. Okay. Get over it. So my free advice, if you only, anybody out there, just send Mr. Trump the last, 2 minutes of this video or something. My free advice to Donald Trump, sir, please, if you're listening, if somebody is listening, okay, cut the losses in the war. It's over. Ukraine lost, the West lost, NATO lost. NATO will be lucky to be NATO much longer. We don't have to go there. Cut the losses. You've already lost. The losses are there now. You just have to book them, and just blame the Biden administration. It's their fault. Okay, great. And then moving forward, Russia back in SWIFT, and start lifting sanctions, and maybe even like talk with the Russians. I mean, the Russians pulled their ambassador from Washington not too long ago because for 7 years, nobody would talk with the guy. I mean, he just. He'd try to talk to American policymakers. It was like, oh no, you're Russian, we can't talk with you. I mean, you better talk with them. If you don't talk with them,
that's the whole reason to have embassies, to talk to people you don't like. Yeah.
If you don't speak with Lavrov, you're going to speak with the generals in charge of the missile system. Okay, get over it, move ahead. I mean,
exactly.
Clean break, move ahead. Make America great again, make America healthy again. And we won't make America great and healthy by getting in a nuclear war.
No, absolutely. Well, Byron, that was amazing. Thank you so much for that whole overview and just great broad brush about what's going on and about the missiles. And, it's great for non-military people like me to learn about all that stuff. And I hope all of you watching really enjoyed this. Thank you so much for your time. For Byron King, I'm Sean Ring, and we'll see you soon, I hope.
We'll see you soon, everybody. It's before Thanksgiving, so have a very fine Thanksgiving.
Indeed. Have a happy Thanksgiving.